Hey, Dave Lawrence, Hawaii Public Radio.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How about you? Thanks for asking.
I'm rocking.
I know that. No question on that one. It's Hawaii Public Radio, member supported, and I'm Dave Lawrence, all things considered, legendary blues harmonica player Charlie Musselwhite, coming back to the islands and taking some time to be part of the program. Thank you very much, Charlie. Great to have you on.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. And when we think about you, you're about to come back to the islands. I know when it comes to Hawaii, you've got some stories, pretty unique, too.
Oh, there's a whole lot of them. Starting with Henrietta's shark unpleasantness. She was attacked by an 18-foot tiger shark in 2000.
Wow.
Off of Honolulu. Survived.
God bless.
But we have lots of friends there. We used to go like every summer and camp. A good friend of ours was a booking agent. He would book me at all the different islands, and he died. And since then, nobody's took his place. So we haven't been back working. We've been a few times to visit, but really looking forward to seeing all our old friends.
I think that's an amazing story with your wife, too, and I'm grateful that she got through that one. And were you there at the time and witness to that?
Well, I had been there, and then I left to go down to Mississippi for a family reunion. And then I had just got back home when our daughter called and said that Mom had been attacked by a shark, and I immediately thought it was a joke for a second. And then I wanted to come there right away, and Henrietta said, "No, I want you to stay there so I can talk to you." So I had to wait here till she got home.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable story. Well, thank God we're through that, and maybe avoid any major swimming unless it's in a pool or bathtub.
Oh, she's going right back where it happened. Right? She likes to go. She's like getting back on the horse that threw you. You know, she goes right back.
That's impressive. Well,
yeah.
that's she's got strength I wouldn't have. I'd be taking a different road on that one. But between Dad on guitar and harmonica, Mom on piano, you had music around you from the very beginning. Can you take us to some of the important moments or ways that they shaped you?
Well, there was a lot of people in my family that played music. None of them really played professionally. Like my grandmother played piano in church, you know, and my father played just around when he was a kid growing up in Mississippi. I mean, they didn't record or go on the road or anything like that. They just, in fact, almost every Musselwhite I've ever met played an instrument, but not necessarily professionally. I guess you could say it's genetic. People just have to play. So I didn't. In fact, my father really discouraged me from playing. You know,
Wow.
He just thought it was something frivolous, and you know, you should go to school and get a good job and settle down. You know, don't waste your time playing music. So I didn't get any kind of inspiration from family members, but
Is that how you were introduced to the harmonica, though, because he played that?
well, they were just around the house. I mean, it was like a toy. And I liked all kinds of music, but when I was about 13, I had become really, really interested in blues. And I was going all over Memphis looking for old blues records, old 78s. I really loved the sound of the blues harmonica. And one time got to thinking, well, you got a harmonica. It feels so good to listen to it. I bet it feels even better to play it. So I just went out in the woods and started teaching myself how to play the blues on the harmonica. And then later on, I got to know some real old-timers around Memphis that played guitar and harmonica, and I started hanging out with them and learning from them. And if I had known at the time that I was going to have a career in music, I would have paid a lot more attention. But I just thought I was having fun. I just loved the music, and I just wanted to play it. But I didn't know I was going to, spend my life actually doing it and traveling the world.
And you mean that the chances that you had to sort of mentor with people like that, you wish you had done a little bit more learning?
Yeah, if I could go back, I'd like to know a lot more about their whole lives, who they learned from. But I didn't, as a teenager, I just didn't think to ask all those questions that you that with maturity
you come up with later. I know what you're
Yeah.
saying. I know what you mean. You headed up Highway 51, though, arriving on the south side of Chicago.
Well, the only reason I went to Chicago was I'd heard there was good factory jobs up there that paid good money. And I didn't know about the blues scene up there. Somebody had told me that anybody that was in any kind of show business either lived in New York City or Hollywood. So I didn't have any reason to think that I was going to run into Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson in Chicago, but I sure did. Right away, I discovered the whole blues scene there and just started hanging out in all the blues clubs. And coming from Memphis, I already knew how to drink, so I was good at hanging out. And all these guys just thought of me as a fan because I'd request tunes and stuff, and they were surprised and flattered that I would come to see them in these really rough places. And then later, when it came out that I played, then the people would insist that I sit in. I wasn't one of those guys that went around saying, "Hey, can I sit in?" and showing them my harmonica. I was happy just to be there. I wasn't trying to promote myself or nothing. But when they started insisting that I sit in, and guys heard me playing, then other guys started offering me gigs to play with them, and that got my attention. You're going to pay me? Okay, let's go.
Tell me a story when one of those first big names said, "You got to sit in with me."
Well, Muddy Waters, there was a club called Pepper's Lounge on 43rd Street, and Muddy lived right around the corner. And when he wasn't on the road, that was his home club. That's where he played. Pepper's was open till 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning on Saturday night or Sunday morning. So that's a lot of time to play. So sitting in was a common thing. All these different musicians that didn't have a gig that night, they'd be hanging out at Pepper's Lounge and sitting in with Muddy. So it wasn't unusual for me to sit in. It's just unusual that I was as young as I was because this was strictly adult music. I was a teenager, and probably the youngest guys around there were probably in their late 30s or mid-40s or something. It was a strictly adult crowd. But then there was nobody my age or white hanging out there. It was just, so that was unusual, a young white kid sitting in. So Muddy and Wolf and all those guys, when they found out I played, they were really tickled to hear me play and real flattered that I would be hanging out with them, and they were real encouraging to me to play, and that gave me a lot of confidence in myself, and I kept doing it, kept hanging out and playing, and first thing I know, I've been offered a chance to record an album, and that put me on the road.
It's unbelievable, too, and some of the ways that influenced your life. Another influence, Big Joe Williams.
Oh, yeah, we roomed together a couple of places in Chicago, and Big Joe played a 9-string guitar, and he wrote "Baby, Please Don't Go." He was one of the real old-timers. He knew guys like Robert Johnson and Charlie Patton. And when I'd walk into Pepper's Lounge with Big Joe, Muddy would get all like a little kid because Joe had been a hero of his when he was coming up. And he'd get us a table and a setup and buy some drinks and tell the audience that Big Joe Williams was in the house, the man that wrote "Baby, Please Don't Go." And so it was great for me to go hang around Joe and go all over Chicago with him. He knew everybody.
You paint such a cool picture right there. John Lee Hooker, described as having been a close friend of yours. God bless John. Where did you first cross paths, and what's an endearing story when you think of trying to honor him?
Well, John lived in Detroit, but he would come to Chicago regularly to play, and I'd always been a fan of his I had his records, 78s and 45s and 33 and a third albums, and under all different kind of pseudonyms. He recorded as Texas Slim and John Lee Booker and Johnny Williams and all these different names, but I could tell it was him. Nobody sounded like John Lee but John Lee.
Right on.
So he came to Chicago one time to play on a place on Roosevelt Road, and I went over there to see him. We just hit it off immediately, became good friends and stayed in touch till the day he died, and I spoke at his funeral. He was always just a good friend, and I played with him and recorded with him many places, many times, and he really enjoyed life and loved a good joke and loved to laugh, and just had a wonderful time being with him. He was my best man when I got married to Henrietta.
Wow. That's a lot of connections to a really important individual.
Oh yeah, he could get as deep as he wanted to, or just tell a joke.
He was special. And in another opportunity to correct material that's out in the public world via the internet, it says on Wikipedia page related to you that you're the one who convinced John Lee to move to California.
I don't know if it's a fact, but I know that I went out to California first, and I remember calling him and telling him how great it was and how he was really going to like it. And wasn't long after that I found out he had moved into an apartment in Oakland, and I went right over to visit him, and he stayed in California from then on.
When you think about your own move to San Francisco, some of your memories from that period, maybe some of the San Francisco area folks that you became close to, what sticks out?
Well, first of all, it was the underground radio in San Francisco that was responsible for me leaving Chicago, because those guys, those disc jockeys, would play anything they wanted to play. They could just bring records from home and play them. They weren't given a list and saying, this is what you're going to play. And that was great, because some of those guys somehow got a hold of my record and knew about me and started playing me, and that created a buzz. Next thing I know, people are calling me to come play in California, and at first I kept putting them off, but they wouldn't stop, and they finally offered me a whole month of work, and I thought, well, I'll just go out and do that and come back to Chicago. But when I got to California and saw how much, well, it's like blues was something exotic. They weren't familiar with Chicago blues, and they wanted to hear it, and so I was glad to play it for them. And so I found out the whole West Coast had lots of work, and they paid way better than those little tiny clubs in Chicago. They were too small to generate the money to pay much. But here were these big ballrooms and all the hippies, and man, it was just a wild scene. I loved it, and that kept me on the West Coast.
There's some classic venues that are probably part of this journey that you're describing. I'm thinking the Fillmore, the different bands that folks might think of. When you think of an event, maybe an unusual bill you were on, or perhaps, as you've pointed out, there have been some significant, maybe catalytic moments in your life where you met the right guy, or a session came out as a result of a gig. Is there something you can point to, or an individual like that?
Well, my very first gig in San Francisco was at the Fillmore, and the bill was me and Cream and Butterfield, and that's where I got to know Eric Clapton. It was I don't know if it was his first gig in America, but I think it was the first one at the Fillmore. Just playing at the Fillmore was a pretty big deal. You didn't play one night; you played I think 4 or 5 nights in a row. Each week was a different group. Bill Graham was real good at bringing in people that people might not have ever heard of, but they trusted his taste. And whoever he booked, people would flock to the Fillmore. They couldn't wait to hear the next group that he was going to introduce to you. The lineups could be wild, too. He might have Count Basie and Ravi Shankar and Albert King on the same bill, and it would work.
It was great what he did. I just admire those kind of, to me, that's the essence of rock. It's kind of like what I like about this radio job, if I can interject it, because one week we could be interviewing some new heavy metal band, and the next week talking to a guy like you, and to me that is the same kind of spirit that Bill Graham brought to those concerts of just...
it all dovetails together. It doesn't have to be kept separate.
That's right. That's right.
Also, it's great for those musicians to play with each other. Like I've recorded with Brazilian groups and Cuban groups, and in their style of music, and jazz groups, and gospel, whatever. I love to see how I can fit what I do with whoever I'm playing with.
Whether it's Bonnie Raitt, Tom Waits, In Excess, to add to what you're talking about, Cyndi Lauper, yeah. Ben Harper, a lot of people. You're absolutely right. And your Continental Drifter recording from '99. Did you actually go to Cuba to do that one? Or
no, at that time you couldn't go to Cuba legally, but we both, the Cuban group called Quarteto Patria, he is booked into a festival in Norway, and I was playing there. I knew I was going to see them there, and I already was a big fan of Eliados Ochoa. I had all his CDs, and I knew somebody that could get them out of Cuba. So I knew all his music, and my first idea was that maybe we could record some blues together. But when I started talking to them about blues, they didn't know anything about. They'd never heard any blues. They'd never heard of B.B. King or Muddy Waters or anybody. So I said, that's okay. I know your music. I'll play with you guys. So what I did was I put blues lyrics to their tunes, and I sang those lyrics to their music and played harmonica, and it worked out.
No, it's hot. That's the way to do it. And you have that great collaborative spirit. You know what I've always been curious about? You're credited, and I don't remember a whole bunch about it, the filming of that Blues Brothers project where they had the Louisiana Gator Boys, sort of an all-star group of cats, B.B., Bo Diddley, Eric Clapton, who you mentioned, Coco Taylor, Jimmy Vaughn, Dr. John, Jack DeJohnette. You have some memories of that? Anything that sticks out, or is that a high point?
Well, that was a lot of fun. It was called Blues Brothers 2000. They flew us up to a soundstage near Toronto. The whole part that I was in and that band scene at the end was just done in one day. All those guys there, all those great musicians, and many of us were old friends anyhow. Dr. John and B.B. and Eric Clapton and Bo Diddley. I wish somebody had been filming all the behind-the-scenes parts, because there was some hilarious jokes were told, and it was just like a family reunion. And that could have been a documentary all on its own, but I don't think anybody filmed that part. I first met Joshua Redman there not long ago, a couple of years ago. We played together at a jazz festival. His group played, my band played, I played with his band, he played with my band, then we all played together at the end. And
you kind of credit getting together with him at this Blues Brothers 2000?
Well, that's where we met.
It's cool.
And after that, I kept running into him in different places.
Clapton, was that a guy that you kept running into, or was that one of the last times you got to deal with him?
I think that might have been the last time I saw him. I'm not sure.
When you look at a life like yours, Charlie, as we go to wrap it up, you've gotten to work with some of the biggest names ever. You're a cat who's contributed yourself immensely, and God bless you every single day, you and your wife, especially with her swimming habits. But when we think about, I think about your life looking forward, and maybe when you encapsulate your legacy and think about things that are left undone that you really wish you could do, what comes to mind?
Oh, boy. Well, kind of like what I said earlier, I wish I'd paid more attention. I wish I could go back in time and revisit all the people I knew and ask them more questions about their own lives.
Like who? Like who?
Oh, Will Shade, Burry Lewis, Gus Cannon, and then later on, Big Joe Williams and Little Walter, Sonny Boy Williamson. I mean, as well, I knew him real well. I mean, we were friends, but I never thought I was just too young to think of it on that level of delving into their lives and how they thought about things, and we were just having too much fun.
Are you a spiritual guy? Do you
Well, I like to think so. You
feel those cats ever? Are there moments that you ever feel the vibration of somebody very close? Could be mom and dad, could be them.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I'd like to think it's real. You know, on the other hand, I can't help but wonder am I just fooling myself? But I like to think it's real, and why not?
I read about your own history with your mom and dad, so I mean, I constantly think I feel my mom, and I have the same uncertainty because I just don't know, but I think I feel her.
There's times, especially right after she died, that were really powerful. It felt like she was present. And still occasionally I feel that presence.
In the rain, I feel it for some reason. When it's overcast, cloudy, a lot of moisture in there. I don't know why. I feel it.
I know what you mean.
You know, and it's great talking to you. I could go all day. I hope that you had fun going over some of these things with me. I hope this wasn't a drag or a hassle.
Oh, not at all. And I enjoyed it, and hope you'll come to the show, and hope to meet you there. Hey, aloha. This is Charlie Musselwhite, and you're tuned to my good friend, Dave Lawrence. I I ain't lying, on member-supported Hawaii Public Radio.
I'm giving you a big hug. I hope that you feel it. I'm really appreciative of your time. I really, really dig talking to you.
I hope that maybe this little tour will generate interest in another one, and we'll include Honolulu, too.
We have a great little 75-seat performance studio attached to the radio station. Makes a wonderful venue. If you did a few nights, you could probably recoup it would work. You could do like 1 or 2 nights at this. I'll talk to Henry about it and see if she's interested someday exploring it.
Sure. We love Hawaii.
It could work. Could be something.
Yeah.
But God bless. You be safe, Charlie. Charlie Musselwhite, and a pleasure having you on All Things Considered with me today. I'm very grateful.
My pleasure. I look forward to seeing you.
Take care, brother.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.